We're here to rank the rookie running backs from the 2024 NFL Draft class for Dynasty fantasy football purposes. The NFL Combine's over. We got new data on these running backs. Is that going to change some things? Also, we're adding 3 more running backs to the mix. We add 3 new players to the rankings every week at random. The list was started at random, and we just rank these running backs at random. That being said, you got to pay attention to the whole video to get the gist of the rankings, because I'm switching the ranks all throughout the video. If you're at the top, you may be at the bottom by the end. So you got to pay attention to the whole thing. But this is for Dynasty Fantasy Football. We're projecting out for long-term player values here. Who's going to be hitters? Who's going to be not? Who's climbing the ranks? Who's not? We're going to cover that today. Before we do, you need to click that subscribe button, because we're going to help you out with your rookie drafts. We're going to help you win those rookie drafts. We're going to help you build those dynasty teams. It all starts right here, and we've been doing it for years. But going over here to the tier maker, and it looks different. And this is how we ended things last week, with an A1, A2, and A3 tier. And it looks weird. And why does it look weird? Because it's a weird class. This is a weird running back class. Coming in, most people said it was a bad running back class, but when you dive in, there's some profiles you're like, okay, we can roll with this. And then those profiles have some red flags, and it's just weird. It's a weird running back class. So why would I rank it normal? Why would I hold things normal? I'm going to be very fluid. I'm going to be looking at these guys rationally, irrationally, off and on throughout the whole process, but we're going to feed you some information. But A1, A2, A3 is close to the same, but it's really great on how much I love the player. And honestly, draft capital and fit is so important for this draft class, especially for running backs in general. Running backs in this rookie class are just cheap capital at the running back position for NFL teams. They're excited to get some cheap running backs to throw in the mix for the running back depth chart. Pathways to opportunities is going to be huge for them. The earlier they're selected, the better pathway on their team, the better offense, the better. Normal common sense stuff, but a big deal right now in 2024 for Dynasty Fantasy Football purposes. But we're going to rank our first guy. We're ranking at random, just randomly off the generated list here. The last 3 guys are the new guys, so you want to pay attention to those if you watched last week. But Jonathan Brooks, come on down. Come on down, Jonathan Brooks. Let's talk about him a little bit. And I like him. I like what I see on tape. Very fluid runner. He's twitched up, catches passes out of the backfield. I think he might be a good discount in the draft too, due to that ACL discount. And you're going to maybe catch an ACL discount in your rookie drafts. Maybe. We're seeing it more likely now after the NFL Combine. That might happen. A lot of people have him propped up as the RB1. I got him up there pretty high, but I'm also very fluid. I'm like Bruce Lee, you got to be like water. So I'm going to become the cup with these running backs. Jonathan Brooks, though, when I think about ranking him, I'm thinking about that ACL discount. I'm thinking about where he lands. If I'm really wanting production, and I'm dying for production in 2024, I might fade him a shade. That's just not how I play, though. So that's not going to be me. How I play, though, is I judge talent first. I think he's very talented. I think we're going to see some flashes, him getting some opportunities in the back half of the season, the back 9, maybe the last 4 weeks or so. Start getting a little run there, not too much. Maybe something to prospect on. You might be able to buy him cheaper later, especially in season. That's the thing about him. If there's a running back close in value in ADP or another wide receiver, I might pivot to that player and try to buy him cheaper later in the season. The devil's advocate to that thought, though. The person who drafts him knows this going in, and you may not get them to come off him. That's the thought on that, too. I like to argue with myself. And in the middle of that is some gold. So you got to find it. You got to mine it. But I have him up here in A1. Next player. I had him in A1 last week. I don't know if I'm keeping him there, but it's Blake Corum. But I want to talk him up. So at the Combine, it was quiet. It was okay. He hit the expectations, which is good. He did what we saw on tape. He's got some pop in his step, moves laterally very well. He did well in those metrics. The 40 time, it was okay. It was what we thought it was going to be. Blake Corum's not a home run threat. However, he hit the expectations I kind of wish he exceeded expectations just a tad in that department. I kind of wish he did. That's kind of a little bit sour on me. But I go back to the production a couple years ago. That was massive. That was top tier. You go back to the tape. You go back to what NFL teams want. He's a very dependable running back who can run between the tackles. I think he's going to get draft capital. I don't care about the age. I just don't care about that stuff with running backs. I'm looking at 1 to 2 years. And I'm looking at their long-term player outcomes as a very volatile thing. And I think Blake Corum's going to have some opportunities early in his career. An NFL team's going to look at him and say, hey, I can plug him in instantly. I can throw him in there and feel good about it. But we got to move on to our next pick. We got to move on to our next player. We're not drafting, we're ranking. And if I did a mock draft, it'd be ranking because that's how it is if you're doing it by yourself. So our next player, come on down, Trey Benson. Trey Benson. So I don't even know what to call it, but it's an up and down relationship with him. The vision on some of these plays is not very encouraging, but when you go to the tape, you see the size, you see the burst. And I'm really saying the same thing I've been saying all along. And then he hits at the combine with that 4.39 and really puts the stamp on that burst that you see on the tape. I think that solidifies him on day 2. I think that's going to give him opportunity to get drafted into a situation where he's going to see volume early in his career. When I look at running backs and when I look at drafting them, that's what I really want to see. I want to see good athletic specs. I want to see you in a good landing spot. I want you to get opportunity. After that, it's ambiguous from there. I mean, look at the running backs who are already in with their teams, they're invested with, and how ambiguous that is from week to week in season. Look how ambiguous that is. It's up and down. I don't like the production profile too much. It's not overwhelming. It's not over the moon. But it's there. It's good enough. What I see on tape is a thicker running back who runs with some pop, who can get behind them shoulders. And sure, there's some miscues here and there. But again, every one of these running backs in these rankings got their own red flags. Jonathan Brooks has got the ACL. Blake Corum's not a home run hitter. Trey Benson, you got a few miscues on the tape. Trey Benson has a ton of upside with that speed and that size-adjusted athleticism. When I want to rank these guys, and when I think about these tiers, A1, it's like this. And I'm for real with that. This is a carousel right now. This is a carousel. Before, it was more like, it was like that. I like Jonathan Brooks best skill set wise. The NFL might say, hey, I may want Trey Benson over Corum. The NFL might say, hey, we may want Corum over Trey Benson. I want to be fluid. I'm using the Bruce Lee method here. I'm going to become the cup. I understand that some people want to be told what to do. I don't think that's the right method. I think this is a process, and we do this every year. Pretty much my channel is a diary for looking at these prospects, kind of like Doug Funny style with his diary, his journal. We're journaling these prospects. We're working them through every single day here. That being said, this A1 tier, I think we're solid, but I might pull someone up and change my mind. Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving. Throw him right here for a second. Let's talk about him. When it comes to size-adjusted athleticism, he kind of hit towards expectations, but a little bit on the lower end of the spectrum there. He's not the fastest guy on tape. Doesn't have that pull-away speed. He's not going to blaze the track or blaze the football field. He does catch passes out of the backfield. He's very good at that. You can line him up as a wide receiver in the slot and on the outside. He can run routes. Decent between the tackles. With him, it's what does the NFL think about him? And we're going to say this about a lot of running backs. But we had some running backs hit at the combine, and that's going to dilute his stock down a little bit. You look at what he does on film. You look at what he does with his approach to the line of scrimmage, into the second level, how he can chain together moves, read the momentum of the defense around him. It's pretty solid. You can see him holding it down a bit. You can see him catching some passes out of the backfield. He's got that James Cook-esque size-adjusted athleticism with that receiving backfield. However, when we looked at James Cook during his draft cycle, his profile, it was a profile that also had some holes in it as well. Bucky Irving, I had him here by himself. Let's put him here for now. Let's drop him down a bit, but we're not sending him to hell. The one thing about his prospect profile here, catches passes out of the backfield. He's slippery, good approach to the line of scrimmage. He's never going to be a home run threat. Maybe doesn't have to be either. And 4.5 something is fast enough to compete at the NFL level. Next, Braelon Allen. He is the mystery running back of this draft class because when you look at the tape, you have to look at it in years. It's kind of like a book with different chapters. That's what you look at with his tape. One is last season, he's in a different offense. It's more passing focused, so there's more receiving volume in there. And he was playing injured in a lot of games. He had an injury. He was dealing with an ankle. He was working through that. And then also, 2021, 2022, during his freshman and sophomore years, the tape checks out. Running through the middle of the defense, having some long runs, very assertive, more of an aggressive runner back then. And you look at that tape versus now, that could be something. Comes in a little bit lighter at the combine, doesn't run. We don't know if he's playing damage control with the 40-yard dash, but Braelon Allen did not compete at the combine. The combine's not everything. I've seen the tape. I like what I saw out of him during the 2021-2022 season. What I saw in 2023 makes me scratch my head a little bit with him. I'm going to put him in A2. I think there's upside for A1, but I'm going to put him on A2. The other negative in his profile is he doesn't catch passes out of the backfield. He just doesn't. That's the other negative in his profile. If we increase that production, he did last year, but it was kind of at default due to the nature of the offense. We're going to just keep him at A2, be fluid with him, and I think that's the right move at this point. Jaylen Wright, come on down. We were big on Jaylen Wright last week when we were doing the rankings. We talked him up, and I wanted to move him up. I wanted to move him up because I knew he was going to test this way. We watched tape, we watched again. Combine happens, he does it. Go back to the tape, you see it. Not the greatest running back, not the most fluid running back. Not a guy that you're going to plant your flag on and say, hey, this is next Jonathan Taylor or anything. But when you look at him, you see him twitched up. You see the size. You see him moving around there. You see the upside with him. You see him pulling away. Day 2 draft capital is highly likely. I can't put him ahead of Benson. I can't put him ahead of Corum. Jonathan Brooks. Him and Braelon Allen's kind of fighting it out. Braelon Allen's got more production to him over the course of time. He's got some goods to the tape when you look at his older tape. Jaylen Wright, though, got 1,000 yards at SEC competition. Jaylen Wright's got the home run hitting speed. I think he's going to get day 2 draft capital. I could be wrong. We've been wrong on these prospects before. Let's let him hang out there. Next is Marshon Lloyd. Ooh, he crushed the combine. He's going to be a sneaky draft pick on day 2 for the NFL draft, probably. He's going to be a sneaky fit on day 2. The receiving production isn't 100% there, but at the Senior Bowl, we saw it. Catching passes out of the backfield. He's got some bursts. He's got some speed. We saw that on tape. We saw that at the Senior Bowl. We're seeing that at the Combine. Everything is marinating together. I think we want some money with him. I think he's going to jump some value in rookie drafts. I really like Marshon Lloyd, and I think the upside's immense. I think this tier is very fluid, and I think when I look at this tier, I think Jaylen Wright has a lot of upside. I think Braelon Allen is safe play. I think Marshon Lloyd, I like him due to the value and upside he brings. And ADP-wise, might have him lower than these two guys. But in the grand scheme of things, as a football player, as where we are getting him at in drafts, I like his value. And I think that deserves me pumping him up a bit, for sure. But moving on to our next player here. Audric Estime. I want to know your feelings right now. Should we do the Viking funeral now? Should we just take his picture, put it in a little coffee cup, just light it on fire, maybe have some suds out there in the water, some soap, maybe a good bath bomb going, just send him off? Should we send him to hell right now? Or act with grace, give him a little bit of opportunity, maybe a pro day, fixes those numbers. But Audric Estime, 4.71 40-yard dash. And I told you guys on live stream, I'm going to go back to the tape twice. and I ended that live stream at 1 a.m. with you guys. I went to the tape right then and there. I went to the tape the next day. After I talked about the wide receivers, I was on here. I was like, I got to figure this puzzle out. I did it again today. And the one thing commenters would say to me is like, look at that NC State game. Look at him pull away. Look at him pull away. But they're not talking about the Central Michigan game where he got caught from behind. They're not talking about all those other times. They're not talking about the other times in the second level where he gets caught from behind. He leaves a lot of meat on the table. On top of that, though, we're talking about Audric Estime. That's not the ranking. But on top of that, you see his approach to the line of scrimmage. It's very solid. It's very solid. And then also in the second level, he times his movements perfectly, and he's very fluid moving laterally. Also, the other thing about him, though, the receiving production's not really there. But he's a good hammer between the tackles. He needs the right fit, and he needs draft capital. He needs opportunity. He needs that stuff. Like, he needs that stuff. Everybody needs that stuff. But he needs that stuff. That's different. That's different. Like, you're not going to put him on the field and expect him to catch 5 balls in a game consistently. You're not going to put him on the field, expect him to get a 60-plus run every now and again. Maybe once or twice in his career. You can't put him on the field with a good offensive line, good offense, good volume. He can churn out production between the tackles, maybe have a Bucky Irving beside him. Like, if these two are paired together and they were tapping into each other's upside as a package deal, that would work together. You probably need a home run threat there. Maybe. You probably do. You probably need a little bit more speed. But that could work as a tandem. I feel like A3 right now. I think that he could go to a spot where he could get some opportunities. I think his vision could help him out. I think that vision can get him out of that hole. But still, there's some upside there that he needs to tap into. Moving on. Moving on to our next player. And we're into our big three. Not our big three, but our new three. We add 3 players every week to the listing, to the rankings, whatever you want to call it. And the first player we're going to talk about is Will Shipley. Come on down. The former 5-star recruit who went to Clemson. Clemson has been a clusterfuck these last few years, so you really did not see the best out of Will Shipley. You turn on the tape, you put on the fine jeweler's glass, you'll see him run up the gut, you'll see him chain together moves, but the receiving production, he's multifaceted. He's a good running back. He's a running back that I see going to a spot, if he gets opportunity, could be fantasy relevant, can get you some value, and he's going to be cheap. He's going to be cheap, and he's got upside. Because he didn't run at the combine, people aren't talking him up. And he kind of gets forgotten about. One, we have 30,000 wide receivers in this draft. And the running backs kind of exceeded expectations on the top end. And that really went quiet on Will Shipley. I love the receiving production. I also love the 5-star prowess, but you're not married to it. You're not married to it, but it's there because it's part of the recruiting process and the draft process because scouts look at it. It's information. You look at all information. Catch the ball well in the backfield, good between the tackles. When I look at him and Bucky Irving, they got comparable profiles. When I think about him and Audric Estime, he kills Audric Estime when it comes to fantasy upside. I'm going to put him right up here in A2. It looks weird, but the one thing he has over those 3 running backs in that tier is that versatility in the passing game. I like him between the tackles. I think he's got very good balance. I think he's a running back that can really surprise us. And we're looking for a running back that can surprise us because it's a weird running back class and it's going to surprise us. So let's anticipate that. Moving on, Isaac Guerrero. And I said it wrong, but we're calling him that. But the size adjusted, athleticism went off the charts. He trains with Jonathan Taylor. He doesn't look like that on tape. You look at the tape, though, that offensive line does him dirty. It does him dirty, but we got some pop in the step. I already got him pegged out for what I want in rookie drafts. I already do. I already got a good feeling for that. And I feel like for him, we got a good feel of what he is. Not really, kind of, sort of. And we've seen this profile before with these running backs. He's going to be a flyer. We're going to get to the 3rd and 4th round. You need a running back. Lloyd gone. Shipley gone. These guys gone. You're going to need that flyer. That size-adjusted athleticism. If he gets drafted, he should get drafted. He compete at the combine. Should be a guy to look at. I'm throwing him at B right now. The reason why I'm not putting him in A3, even though he has the specs to maybe usurp those guys in production, is potential draft capital. That matters so much for running backs. Also, those guys were way more productive. Those guys have more status. Those guys have more of a resume. He was quite the unknown going into the combine. And really, I don't want to overreact. I think that's the right spot, but I am looking at him later in drafts. Next, our next pick here, Ray Davis. Ray Davis is under the radar a little bit. You watch him run, he's very fluid, got some pop in his step. I watched him today after Ostrich Estime. That kind of sounds like better. But Ray Davis here, he's got more pop. He's more fluid, especially in the 2nd level into the 3rd level. Moves laterally well. He's got good contact balance. Could be a sneaky play. Could be a sneaky pickup, especially if he moves up the depth chart. I think he's going to be a lot cheaper. Well, right now he's going to be a lot cheaper in mock drafts than these guys because he's not getting that love. But I think I don't want him with this tier. This tier is kind of like a group of running backs I kind of love, who's got upside or a blend of fantasy football functionality. When I think of this tier, he kind of fits in there, but he kills it better in athleticism. He kills it better on tape a little bit. But Ray Davis has some upside. He's going to go in a spot in the draft where he's going to be cheap. The running backs in the NFL right now, NFL teams are looking at him and I want the cheapest one. I want the one that gives me the most bang for the buck. Compared to that A3, he gives the most bang for the buck right now when we're looking at mock drafts or Dynasty and real NFL mock drafts. I think this makes sense for now. I'm not sleeping on Garendo. I think there's upside there. And I'll probably end up with more shares of him than anybody else here if he's in the 4th round due to cost. A2 makes a lot of sense. A2 could end up being like this. Just shuffled around. A1's the same way. Trey Benson is feeling a lot better to me, but I'm still worried about the vision issues. Blake Corum, whoever loves him a lot. But you really got to acknowledge his game a little bit. The upside may not be 100% tapped in with him due to not having the size-adjusted athleticism. This dude's got an ACL injury. He's got to come back from that. Can you wait that long? Because if you're not patient, you may want to pivot to that wide receiver. Like, if you're going to sell him for pennies on the dollar later, and you're not a patient player, and you're going to get reamed on trades like that because you're not a patient guy, you may not want Jonathan Brooks. It's also about your personality. If you're not a patient person, you may not want Jonathan Brooks because you may have to wait a little bit. But those are the rookie running back rankings as of right now. Might be different tomorrow, but we're going to rank them again next week with 3 more running backs added to this mess. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button now or you're a loser. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.